Hello viewers and welcome back to my channel Lubna Scholars. In this video we will talk about cannibalism in Africa, which has been a controversial and sensationalized topic when discussing certain historical practices within some African tribes. It is important to approach this subject with sensitivity and an understanding that such practices, where they did occur, were often deeply rooted in cultural, spiritual, or survival context. Historically, instances of cannibalism have been documented in various parts of Africa. These instances can be broadly categorized into a few contexts. Number 1, ritualistic cannibalism. In some cultures, cannibalism was part of ritualistic practices. It was believed to bestow power or spiritual benefits or to honor the deceased. Such practices were often symbolic and not necessarily widespread. Number 2, survival cannibalism. In extreme situations such as famines, sieges, or other desperate conditions, groups may have resorted to cannibalism for survival. This form is less about cultural practice or more about dire necessity. Number 3, war and revenge. In some tribes, cannibalism occurs in the context of war, where consuming parts of enemies was seen as a way to gain their strength or to terrorize opponents. It's crucial to recognize that these practices were not universal across African tribes and were often misunderstood or exaggerated by colonial powers to justify their actions and portray African cultures in a negative light. Modern Africa is diverse, and such practices, if they existed, have largely been abandoned and are not representative of contemporary African societies. Now we will talk about misconceptions about cannibalism in African tribes, which are rooted in historical biases, sensationalism, and the misinterpretation of cultural practices. These misconceptions have often been perpetuated by colonial narratives and media portrayals. Here are some key misconceptions. Widespread practice. One major misconception is that cannibalism was widespread across Africa. In reality, instances of cannibalism were rare and isolated to specific contexts, often tied to extreme circumstances or particular cultural rituals. Number 2, cultural norm. Another misconception is that cannibalism was a cultural norm of many African tribes. Most African cultures have strong taboos against cannibalism. Where it did occur, it was usually in specific ritualistic or extreme contexts, not as a common practice. Number 3, barbarism. Cannibalism has often been used to depict African tribes as barbaric and uncivilized. These portrayals ignore the complex and sophisticated cultures, societies, and traditions that existed and continue to exist in Africa. Number 4, colonial justification. European colonizers frequently used allegations of cannibalism to justify their imperial endeavors, portraying African society as in need of civilization and European intervention. These narratives were often exaggerated or fabricated to legitimize colonial rule. Fifth one, homogeneity. There is a misconception that Africa is culturally homogeneous and that cannibalistic practices, where they did exist, were uniform across the continent. Africa is incredibly diverse with thousands of distinct culture, language, and traditions. Practices and beliefs vary widely. Correcting the misconceptions. Cultural sensitivity. Understanding and respecting the cultural context is crucial. What might be interpreted as cannibalism in some reports may have been symbolic or spiritual practices misrepresented by outsiders. Academic research engaging with anthropological and historical research provides a more nuanced view. Many reputable scholars have debunked myths and provided context to isolated incidents of cannibalism. Diverse narratives highlighting the diversity of African cultures help combat stereotypes. Africa is not a monolith and its cultural practices are as varied as those on any other continent. Media representation. Advocating for accurate and respectful media representation can help solve this misconception. Understanding the complexity and diversity of African cultures, as well as the historical context in which these misconceptions arose, is essential for a respectful and accurate portrayal of Africans' rich cultural heritage. I hope you have liked the video, so kindly like, subscribe and share my channel. We will meet in next video with next topic. Until then, take care and goodbye.